I've had conversations about this with people about, what exactly a brand is, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, I spoke to a person who has a podcast, right? The brand itself does well in social media. The brand itself does well on YouTube, gets clips, plays. But he's really like, dude, I can't get the sponsors. I haven't tried to hit sponsors because I'm worried about like my Spotify numbers aren't good enough.
Mm. Yeah, classic story, really.
Right. But I said to him, like, and jump in anytime if you want to disagree or agree here. I said, well, you're only looking at yourself as only a podcast.
Mm.
Podcast is just something that you do. You do work in the wrestling world as a commentator.
Mm-hmm.
Your brand you have plenty of tweets that go viral,
Right.
along with the Instagram stuff.
Right.
The YouTube plays get good reviews, gets a good amount of numbers, but you're only worried about one facet of it. Like I think honestly, sometimes people pigeonhole themselves and they don't necessarily think of themselves as a brand. They just think of themselves as this one facet of my life. This is what I do, and that's it. What do you think,
Yeah.
Stoney?
Well, so, to answer the short question, and this, but for the benefit of our audience, a brand, really, the function of a brand is to make choices easier for an audience, for a consumer, for your friends. I mean, just it's all about creating, and this is like a $10 word. It's called a heuristic. A heuristic is basically a mental shortcut. So when somebody's going to the when somebody's going to the store, and or let's say the grocery store, and they're walking through the aisles and they have to walk through so much consumer science bullshit, they don't want to have to stop and think and go, well, is this cereal going to rot my teeth, or is this cereal going to, is this cereal going to taste good? So a brand is all about making making decisions easier. So for instance, if you're choosing between two brands of cereal and your concern is health, well, which brand, which actual cereal is going to have the brand that communicates to your needs? So an example of this would probably be if we were to say Nature's Valley as like a cereal bar, or whatever the hell those crumbly bits of nothing are. When you think of Nature's Valley, you think about, right? You think about, an image pops into your head. Now, you're not necessarily going to the store specifically to buy Nature's Valley, but if you're in like an awareness phase, like, maybe I want to eat healthier, and you get to that aisle, you're not going to stop and think about, well, this. I mean, some people do, and you probably should, because, branding is one of the many, many ways that, marketers kind of play with our psychology. But it's basically shortcuts. A brand and the elements, your colors, your messaging, the way that your online, your social presence communicates is
Who you are.
Right. It's who you are, right? It's not, it's basically shortcuts. That's it. I mean, it seems really, really simple, but it's, so much science has gone into, so much research has gone into brand building. So much research has gone into figuring out, how we tick, right? So if we see something red, we typically associate red with, why is Target red? Well, the social psychology behind it suggests that it's because we'll shop longer and feel more amped up, and we want to get more things. We want to buy more things. Important red, So I mean, that's my short answer to the ultimate question of what is a brand. It's the blueprint for a shortcut.
Right. And like, as we talked about in the beginning of this show, I mean, the human beings are inherently lazy, right? So like,
Yeah.
you talk about the consumer. Yeah, there might be a small percentage of consumers that think, all right, I need to eat a healthy cereal, blah, blah, blah. Let me do my homework here. But then like, most people like, oh yeah, Hidden Valley, I know that. Okay, let's just go there. Because of the fact that like, that's how they brand themselves. They brand themselves that way for years, and that's what we know them to be. And so it's just, all right, cool. My homework is done for me.
Right. And similarly, when you think of politicians, right, they all have their own brands. Every politician on the national stage has a brand that speaks to that basically shortcuts a lot of very serious issues, that nobody has the time to actually read about because they're too busy working or taking care of family. A politician boils all this stuff down and it becomes a brand of themselves. So that's why when you think of, name any politician, you kind of know what they stand for. It's because their brand is being matured and it's being nurtured, even
especially with like the presence
time.
of social media. Like
Mm-hmm.
social media is branding's now more a thing than ever. I really honestly think everybody has a brand, and people have like argued with me about that. Like, every day people are like, well, okay, well, what's my brand? And I would rattle out things like, this is what you stand for, this is who you are, blah blah blah. That's your brand. If you ever wanted to like brand yourself, that's who you are, because a brand is essentially who you are, and also what the perception the perception of you is.
Yes, that's also
it's a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good point. It's not just what you put out into the world. It's the interaction between how the world perceives you as well. So it's not enough to say, well, we make healthy foods, we're the health people. It's also just as important to kind of do like a social monitoring thing to see what other people are doing and saying about your food. They might be saying, yeah, that stuff's healthy, but it tastes like clams, and I thought it was going to taste like salad. Or and then all of a sudden you're the clam flavored salad company, and so you could lean into that, like if we had a client that was like, everybody online is telling us that our salad tastes like clam sauce, and we know it's healthy, that's why it tastes like clams, then I would feel like, dude, lean into that. Like, you're the clam salad guys, like,
and ladies and gentlemen, that's how Clamato came to be.
Oh, it's funny. I looked up, I don't know how I was on this, but I think it was me and my daughter, Abby. She was a little girl, and we were just like scrolling something, and we found Clamato, and we were like, what the fuck is that?
It's actually good.
You're joking. You didn't drink that.
So, okay, no. All right. So on my honeymoon, we went on a cruise, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm a big Bloody Mary guy. So I'm sipping these things. This bartender, awesome bartender. So do you like spicy? I'm like, love spicy.
Yeah.
So you're going to love, I think it's called Bloody Caesars. I think it's called.
Never heard of it.
So yeah, it's everything a Bloody Mary is, except without the V8 or the tomato juice or whatever you're using, and you're using Clamato instead. It is excellent. It's excellent.
But the clam, though,
I'm a seafood guy, so I don't. You don't really necessarily taste it. You don't necessarily taste the clam per se, but like, it's a little different. I enjoyed it a lot. I actually prefer it.
Today's episode of Go Brand Yourself is brought to you by the delicious taste of Clamato. Pull up a chair and have a delicious warm glass of clam and tomato.
You don't want it warm. That's
why would it be? You want it cold? I don't even know, man. The thing just boggles my mind. You're mixing clam and tomato. I mean, I would understand if you got a plate of clams and you're pouring tomato sauce on them, or whatever you clam eaters do. All right, I would understand that you're eating, you got tomato sauce, whatever. But I'm just imagining, like, it just makes me want to throw up. Like, it's so weird, man. Like, but you're saying it's good.
I enjoyed it.
Hashtag Clamato, man. Like, fucking at Clamato.
It's Clamato. Like, I don't know.
I've been saying Clamato for as long as I've known about this wretched drink.
I'm surprised you knew about it, though.
But man, it's like popular overseas, I think.
It is. I think the bartender was overseas as well, so I think probably that's why. Anywho,
yeah. What's their brand? No, but that's a good point. Like, what is their brand? I'm gonna look that up right now and see if we can do it live. No, but go ahead.
But no, I mean, like, talking about branding, right? So there's so much that goes into it. There's the colors, it's a perception, it's who you are. But like, I going back to the original example here, like, there's so many things you can do with your brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look at even personal branding. You look at someone like, Taylor Swift, for example, right? Originally, when she first came out, she was a country singer, right?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, see, forgot about that. And then, as she got older, she started changing the sound of her music. She started finding her voice more. I think she started writing more, right? Next thing you know, she's doing model work. She's doing acting work. She's doing she recently got into directing. There's so many things that she's doing. But on the
Mhm.
top of that, you know, she's staying true to who she is. She understands the perception about her. She's extending her brand. She actually started branching out, talking a little bit more about politics. You know, she's extended her brand out so much. The fact that like people bought into her.
Mhm.
It didn't necessarily matter if she was a country singer and changed her sound. Like the people were into her just because she was a country star. No, they bought
Yeah.
into her. So whatever she does next, I mean, she could decide the next day she wants to, I don't know, try out for the WNBA. Let's just go with
Yeah.
that, right?
Mhm.
People would follow that journey. People
Yeah.
would follow it
Yeah, no,
just because they
absolutely.
bought into her. Like she's an example. Like that's what I see. Like, you know, it bothered me so much to like, you know, to hear this person say that about like, you
Mm.
know, oh, about my podcast. It's like you are more than that. You
Yeah.
are more than that. And it goes
Yeah.
for any personal brand. It goes for any company. You know, you look at like so many companies, they're not just one thing. Like Honda, did they just stop at making cars? No.
No. No, I think they started with just engines. I think they
Right.
started with it was some engineer from Toyota, I think. I mean, I'll look it up later, but I think he built a motorcycle and then he started building and then it took off from there. Like if he stopped at motorcycle engine, then we would probably not have, you know, all those great cars that still exist and that are stay
Cars,
on the road and
motorcycles, you know,
motorcycles, right?
you name it. Like,
Hmm.
even merch.
Yeah,
Like
merch. Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much you can do. And
Hmm.
I think that's what a lot of people get stuck with. It's like they don't understand A, what a brand is, and
Hmm.
then B, like, you know, again, they just pigeonhole themselves in this one thing that they do. You know, I'm an actor, but like I'm more than an actor. You know, I have my
Right.
own business here with you. You know,
Right.
I do
Right.
stuff in wrestling. I have a wrestling podcast. Uh, you know, Mr. Aspire to Inspire, like that's who I am. And
Yeah.
everything else I do surrounding that comes back to that core message.
So then how would you, you know, how do you say to somebody and say like, okay, so take everything that you are like, I guess my question is, how do you separate your personality from your brand? Right. So for instance, you do all these things.
And these are
But
just
then
things I
somebody
do,
could push
right?
back. Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, well, how, you know, what's the difference between just saying that you're a, saying you do all these things and actually being and actually branding yourself as the person who does all those things? Because it sounds like they're kind of similar, but I know that there's an answer to this question. So for our
Right.
audience's benefit.
Right. So again, it circles back to that message. Like, you know, who I am, right? I'm a dreamer,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You know, I'm positive, I'm confident, and you know, I want others. I believe others can follow their dreams as well. If I honestly believe if I can do it, anyone can do it, right?
Right.
And I like to lead by example.
Right.
So, you know, all these things that I'm doing, you know, it's always been a dream.
Mhm.
It all comes down to that. And like
Yeah.
that's I'm a dreamer. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
And like everything I do is because of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I put out there.
Yeah. Well, I was I think also it's a matter of what you're putting out and what you're basically, you know, advertising for, right? So if if you know like your the difference I guess between the personality and a brand is that like your brand is your outside and your personality is your inside to your close friends, to your people that your family and stuff like that. That's obviously who you are. But I think your friend is probably pushing back a little bit because he doesn't understand that no, it's like no, to really brand yourself, you really have to it's really about like what are you putting out into the world? What are your brand elements, right? So brand elements being, you know, the colors that you use, the tone of voice that you use when you're posting.
Oh, it's all
And
about
yeah,
tone.
yeah.
It's gotta stay true
So
to you. It's gotta sound like you.
right, right. So the idea is that like, you know, yeah, no, there's two different Mark Schwans, right? But they're both very similar. It's just what the Mark Schwann brand is selling Mark Schwann brand. The Mark
Right.
Schwann that hangs out is Mark Schwann. And I think that's where people get tripped up is that when
It's
you
you know,
talk about branding,
they're both very similar. They're both very, very similar. Like the one thing is like you don't necessarily want to disclose everything. There are some things I think you should keep for yourself,
oh
right?
yeah,
Like, you know,
100%.
and it's up to you whether you want to release that or not, whether it's good for the brand. You know, like,
Mhm.
you know, there are things politically, I stay away from it. You know,
Yeah.
because I feel like that does nothing for my brand at all.
Yeah.
Trust me, there are times, and I'm a political person. I think not a lot of people know that about me. Like, I am deep rooted into it. I follow it,
Yeah.
but you know, I don't necessarily advertise that. I don't put it out there unless I see something completely outrageous and like I can't hold this anymore right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happens to Travis, and I pull back. I pull back away from it. I hate when that
Mhm.
happens, but like, and I really try to control it.
Mhm.
But yeah, that I think that part of it, I think that's one example of like the difference between me in real life and me as a brand right there. That's
Yeah.
one difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. We've got an update on Clamato here. So Clamato is branding itself as refreshing. It's got a lot of images on their website of tropical environments. We've got a lot of fresh things going on. So these are all brand elements. The way that they, the photos that they use, all that kind of good stuff. But it's also branded as just a mixer. And that makes sense to me. I thought people were drinking warm Clamato. And so now it's and this might surprise you. Uh let's see, right? It goes, learn about your options for creating all kinds of flavor packed recipes, both beverages and meals. Clamato began refreshing us, right? So there's another one of those words that's used in their brand. They want us to think that it's a
it,
refreshing, that it's
it is
that it's
refreshing.
crisp. It's refreshing, Mark. It's refreshing. It's got clam in it, Mark.
To each their own.
All right, all right, all
Hey,
right.
hey,
I'm
hey,
gonna
hey,
let that.
this is a great example here. This is a great example here. Not every brand is for everyone.
No, I completely agree. I was in a marketing class once, and it was this ad she put up, and my marketing professor put up, and I was like, "Oh, that's terrible." And she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "That ad is not for you." And I was like, "Shit, all right, my bad. Keep my mouth
But
shut."
it's true though. Like just like in real life though, like
Yeah,
you are not for everyone. Hell,
yeah, that's right.
The Rock is one of the most beloved people in the world, but
Yeah,
yet he still has plenty of haters.
yeah, I hate
If
that guy.
the That's weird to me, but
Why?
respect. That's respect. But to
Because
each
you
their
like
own.
Clamato, Mark. You don't have the greatest. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
But
ahead.
but if you look at his social media presence, right? If you look at his box office numbers, the numbers will tell you the world loves The Rock for the most
Yeah,
part.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I think there's no
Sure.
denying that, whether
Yeah,
no matter how you personally feel about the guy.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm
Sure.
saying if The Rock can't make everyone happy, i.e., you, Stoney,
Yeah. No. I mean,
then
yeah. Of
how do
course.
you expect to make everyone happy?
Yeah.
It's
No. It's
impossible.
the same. It's the same thing as like when you tell like an artist like you're never gonna paint the fucking Mona Lisa. So like get off of that. Like get the hell away from the idea that you're gonna paint this magical, amazing thing that everybody's gonna fucking adore. That's not gonna happen. Just similarly, The Rock's not for everybody. Neither
Right.
is this disgusting beverage called Clamato.
We're losing our
So
sponsorship for Clamato right
yeah,
now.
well, we can't even agree on how it's pronounced. But
That's
here's the
true too.
interesting thing. Yeah, here's the interesting thing about Clamato and their branding. It is branded for today. It says today we're the brand Latinos everywhere prefer when preparing beverages and meals, and that hooks
Um,
right into what you were saying. And we're still winning over palates all across the country. Best of all, making something with Clamato is not just delicious, which it's a
it
personal
is.
experience. It's a personal experience
It
with your
was.
own style. It was. You're like, dude, I got to tell you about this fucking Clamato. It was like opening up the fucking, well, shit, I would say it was like opening up the Raiders of the Lost Ark fucking arc. But to each their own. It's not for me. Um, yeah, no, but that's interesting. So it's really branded towards the Latino market.
And I'm part Latino, so there you go. It
Yeah,
makes
there you go.
sense.
So for some reason, no, I don't want to say no, but all of their all of their beverages or all of their things are sweet and spicy. Michelada, I don't know how to pronounce that, but
Is
Michelada.
it is it Blaze Caesars in there?
I don't see that, but there's
Or is it called
malt.
just Caesars?
No, I don't see that either. I see
Well,
sweet and spicy. Michelada.
fantastic drink, people.
Oh yeah, no, tomato cocktail from concentrate. Wait, now I'm starting to doubt they have
now, now,
clams.
now you're going to the deep end here. But with
Yeah,
all that though, I don't necessarily know what Clamato is about. Of course, we have to do a deep dive here and see, like, what exactly are they about, what do they stand for, et cetera, et cetera. And if that is the only thing they do, probably. I can't
yeah,
picture Clamato doing anything.
yeah. No, well, I mean, let's be real. They're probably owned by a mega corporation
I
that
was
does
about to
like
say. I was about to
10,000
say.
other things,
Right,
right?
right, right. But so if what would you have said to my said friend here about when he came to me, he's like, oh, what do I do? Like I would personally say, like, stop focusing on the bad and focus on the good here. What you have to offer. I think there is brand value there. What do you think?
Um, I mean, I would say that you focus on where your core audience is, right? And he was talking specifically about the podcast.
He was specifically talking about the podcast, but the beauty of podcasts is, it's the content that keeps on giving, right?
Right.
So you can take podcasts, for example, ours, right? And you can clip
Mhm.
it and you can put clips on for days in different forms of social media and YouTube, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it gets
Yeah.
your brand out there. It provides opportunities.
Hmm.
You look at someone like Pat McAfee, right? I don't know if you know
Hmm.
who that is.
I don't.
He's in the football world. He has his own
Okay.
podcast. He has his own show, the Pat McAfee Show on YouTube,
Okay.
and he's done phenomenally well. The dude is making way more money than he did ever playing the NFL as a punter.
No
Right?
shit.
He, like, hundreds of billions of dollars, a deal that he got from FanDuel, provide opportunities for him to actually work in WWE, which was a dream of
Hmm.
his, to
Hmm.
work as a host for ESPN Game Day.
Hmm.
It's provided all these opportunities for him, and then come back, and he's a philanthropist. He
Hmm.
he donates his money. He's a good dude. But it gives him all these opportunities. This podcast, this show, it's not what he just does. It's part of who he is. It's part of his brand. Actually, it's a
Right.
slogan for the brand. He understands so
Right.
well. So, but like, you look at like how many people watch his actual whole podcast from front to end, and I'm a big fan of his. I don't even do that all the time. The numbers
Hmm.
aren't always there, but he's got a lot of views on YouTube. When he clips it, he's got a lot of views on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. The brand is powerful. The brand is there because of
Right.
all these things that he does.
Right. So then it's then I would imagine that his biggest thing would be to try to bring it all under one umbrella and to try
Right.
and get it, get your elements down right and have it very strictly managed, because when you have so many things, you either want to spin them off into their own thing, or you want to have a really tight control of your brand, basically. There's the concept of a brand extension, which is, if I think of an example, let's say, well, let's use Keurig, for example, right? So if Keurig was like, they're selling Keurig coffee machines, they're flying off the shelves, people are like, I love this shit, I love paying more for coffee, it's amazing. And then Keurig is like, wow, we're making a lot of money. A brand extension would be trying to open up another line of business that is adjacent to the one that they have. So in the case of your friend, where it would be, if he's big in the wrestling world, he would try to find something adjacent to wrestling to spin off to create its own brand extension. So it's another product or product extension off of the original brand. And the benefits of that is that you get to bet, you borrow from the really good brand, the brand association that the consumers have with your first product. And it's like, oh shit, this is this guy's new wrestling product. So if you were to maybe like go, well, now I'm selling, I don't know what wrestling is, but wrestling gloves or wrestling workout routine, that would be considered a brand extension. Whereas if he were to say, I want to also use my understanding of the wrestling world to create a separate company with a separate brand of wrestling gloves or apparel or whatever the hell you might want to call it, where you might want to do, and make it a separate thing, you're just using your institutional or your professional knowledge and institutional knowledge of the industry to make money in a different way, with a different brand, without attaching it to your
It's
other brand to keep them kind of
it's
separate.
if anything, it's all supplemental income. I can't speak today.
Yeah, well,
Like
me neither.
when you send your brand out there like that, there's different lines in there,
Yeah.
and it all comes
Mhm.
down to, like, one central hub, i.e., you or the central company.
Right.
You know,
Right. And a new update on our friend Clamato. That is owned by Keurig.
oh, there you go.
Keurig Dr. Pepper. Yeah. Yeah. So that would be that to what you're saying, right? So Keurig Dr. Pepper, they would go, what, why don't they, they make many flavors of Dr. Pepper, and Keurig produces, or at least sources and distributes, many different flavors of coffee, right? Why wouldn't they just make everything called Keurig? Why wouldn't they call it a Keurig Dr. Pepper? Right? Because you don't want those brands intersecting with each other too much. Why isn't everything, they have a list of things: Sunkist, Canada Dry, Schweppes, Hawaiian Punch, Real Lemon, Yoo-Hoo, apparently, Snapple, A&W. Why wouldn't they just call them all Dr. Pepper flavors, and Dr. Pepper this, or Keurig presents A&W root beer? It's
Well,
because you want to keep those to a certain extent. You want to keep each individual brand isolated from the effects of, like if something happened bad, like if Keurig went to shit and their stock tanked and it turned out there was fraud, you don't want to have all your brands go down with it, right?
right.
Like, you wouldn't want that. So you have certain reasons for isolating the brands, and then you have certain reasons for doing brand extensions, like, Dr. Pepper's, it wouldn't be merch, but it would be like, different flavors of Dr. Pepper, maybe candy flavored Dr. Pepper, shit like that. But yeah, so that's yeah, go ahead.
I think also, like, a great example of doing all that, of, like, what a brand could actually be. You look at M&M's too. Like,
Yeah.
you look at, for Christ's sake, they have their own big store in New York City,
Yeah.
right? In Times Square. Well,
Mhm.
talk about merch. You talk about the characters, even. Like,
Yeah, they got into some hot water.
At one point, were they talking about even doing a TV show? Like there's just so much that could be done with that. With
Mhm.
like, the power of branding is, like, I don't think people really fully understand it, and I think there's a lot more to pack in that we can't fit into one episode. Just, like, exactly what goes into it and how powerful it can be if you fully understand it.